Rusty, so this is my first time talking to you since your wedding and since your honeymoon, basically.
Yes, I'm back in New York.
We haven't even gamed. This is like our first conversation.
It really is. Some texts here and there.
And you told me that you've been depressed. Do you want to hear my theory on why you're depressed?
It's probably pretty easy to figure out, but you could go for it.
Well, you had the wedding to look forward to, you had the honeymoon to look forward to, and I know that you said that you and Jen weren't really going to do much for Christmas because of the wedding.
True.
And now you got nothing to look forward to and you feel like you're going to have a black Christmas.
I like the tie-in. Yes, I do feel like I'm going to have a Black Christmas.
Ho, 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 shit.
Well, let me tell you what I just did yesterday. Because I'm spending Christmas alone and I bought myself a bunch of Christmas presents. And that is what you should do.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
I kind of did a little bit, and probably not as crazy as you. I'm dying to know what you bought yourself.
Well, I don't know where to begin because I bought quite a lot. I bought the game Super Smash Brothers, the new game for Switch, which notable only because I wasn't going to buy it, but then I was convinced to buy it in the green room of a rock and roll show by a very young man whose name I never got. But it was like I was in Austin at the Sweet Spirit show. Former guest of the show, Sabrina, who was on the Donnie Darko episode, that's her band was playing. And I was in the green room talking to like the opening band who were so young looking. It was insane. And they were talking about how they're going to go play Super Smash Brothers and get wasted. And I was like, "Oh, is that a good game?" And they're like, "It's so good, it's so good." And I sounded so old. I was like, "They still got that. They still got that Mario, that plumber, and he's got a green friend. They still in there." They looked so young to me. I just wanted to shriek and then bathe in their blood.
You were probably like looking at your watch, being like, "I gotta get to bed."
Well, I did. I mean, by the end of that night, I was like utterly destroyed. Me and Sabrina went to the diner with these like random fans who had come up, and it was just like kind of perfect timing because we were saying like, okay, we're gonna go to the diner, and then these two girls came up who had come in for the show, and we ended up going to the diner with them, and I like just kept like having to stop myself from putting my head down on the table and sleeping because it was at that point it was like 3 a.m.
When you were talking to the younger people, how many sentences did you start off with back in my day?
None. But I was communicating via telegraph. It was like
You've got real nerve, old man. Real nerve. But I think we can accommodate you.
I also got the SNK collection.
Akari Warriors.
Akari Warriors is there. That's really only to play with you for like 10 minutes at some later date.
Yes. What else is a good NSK game? Is that Athena? Athena's NSK, right?
I believe, yeah, but it's not in this collection. But they also made like games that I should have known were made by the same people, but like remember that game Guerrilla War?
Oh yeah, I have that game.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, a huge one. This one's going to be wild for us to play. POW.
Oh, I used to love that game.
Me too. I remember beating that game and my hands were just covered in sweat.
You were like living through a war. It was your personal Vietnam.
I was. I also got some new light bulbs.
That's not much of a gift.
Well, but they're like the Philips Hue light bulbs that change colors, and I already have color changing light bulbs, which I actually use quite a lot as part of my stoner lifestyle. But they're really shitty, and like the app is so buggy. So I just wanted to get like a better kind of infrastructure. Wait, so what are the gifts that you got yourself?
I went on a random eBay spree. And
wait, I have to stop you because I did get something that you're going to be very interested in. I also on eBay bought a VCR.
That is awesome.
I have so many videos. Fucking Christmas Day. I also ordered a pie. Christmas Day, I'm gonna have this pie, the cupcakes, and I'm gonna watch videos, and it's gonna be like 8mm meets Monty Python's The Meaning of Life.
Turn it off.
I mean, it's hardcore because there's a lot of family videos that I have not seen in like 20 years that is just going to be like looking at just like ghosts, people who are no longer alive, and it's going to be a very interesting day.
I feel like there's two possible outcomes: you jumping out your window, and people are like, "Why did he do it on Christmas Day?"
That's one of them.
Or are you getting a Santa suit and just murdering people?
Well, it's Christmas time and everything's wrong. We're trimming the tree and singing the songs. We're hanging our stockings while missiles are launched. It's Christmas.
Well, I did decide I'm going to dress up as Santa when I get older.
For what reason?
I don't know, as a job.
Menace people?
No, like I'm going to be a real Santa. Like I'll go to.
Really? You have interest in doing that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
You're just going to embrace the hair. Like you're just going to keep it as part of your regular lifestyle.
Oh yeah, the hair's not going anywhere.
By the way, speaking of the wedding, though, I got back a lot of the wedding photos,
Mm-hmm.
and I need to send my photographer extra money because he made our hair look fantastic.
That's great to hear. It's good to hear the photographers are still embracing MS Paint and doing a little just brown smudges.
I should post one of the pictures because people are going to be like, this guy is clearly not balding.
I would love for you to post that.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it.
Wait, I was going to make a joke about how at the wedding, I don't know if we're going to leave this in, but there was, I posted a photo of us on Instagram, and then someone at the wedding was a listener, and we had, like, he was a date of someone there.
Mm-hmm.
And came up to us and was surprised. And he was like, I didn't put it together. And probably didn't put it together because he was expecting a much balder person.
Yeah, that had to be it. I think that was the highlight of the wedding for you.
That was, for me, for you too.
Well, I don't know how we tied Black Christmas into this, but that's our next movie.
Well, yeah, it does. It sounds like this is not going to be a Black Christmas because of all these great gifts you've bought yourself. Welcome to Arches of Horror. On this podcast, we talk about every... What?
Oh, it's not Arrow Videos anymore.
Yeah, no, we do talk mostly about Arrow, though. And this is an Arrow release of Black Christmas.
Is it?
Black Christmas, is it? I thought you posted a photo and it was a release. Standard def, but still.
I don't know. I don't think it was Arrow. No, it's definitely not Arrow.
Hold on. I have to jump out my window. Can you do the rest of the podcast alone?
I'll try. I was considering watching Black Christmas on VHS.
Oh, that would have been cool.
That's what wait, isn't that what I posted? The VHS in the record?
Look, man, don't ask me.
I'm very disappointed in this atmosphere. I intend to do something about it.
All right. So what did you think of Black Christmas?
I like it. I had never seen it before, which I know is wild because it's like such a classic.
I know you've seen so many movies and like you missed some of these classic ones.
I do. That's what I'm doing when watching the Ingmar Bergman collection from Criterion. But I liked it.
Great cast.
Yeah. I don't know what I was expecting, but I was not expecting what it was.
I want to know how Bob Clark went from a very promising career to finishing his career with like Baby Geniuses and Super Baby Geniuses.
Yeah, I mean, I could just see that happening. Get kind of old, out of touch. You got a mortgage.
Yeah. It's tragic the way he died too. Jeez. That's horrible.
How did he die?
Him and his son were involved in a head-on collision by an intoxicated person, and they both died instantly.
Wow. I somehow missed that. I like remembered him dying of natural causes. This is alarming.
Yes, after he was hit in a head-on collision. He died naturally.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Where was it in LA?
I know California, but I'm not sure if it was LA. But I mean, he has one of the most iconic Christmas movies. He has a iconic comedy film or teen comedy with Porky's,
mm-hmm.
and then an iconic horror film with Black Christmas.
Well, he's got. I mean, they're both Christmas movies, so he's got the iconic comedy and iconic horror.
Scott Farkas staring out at us with his yellow eyes. He had yellow eyes, so help me God, yellow eyes.
You know what's funny? I read an IMDb, actually it might have been a Wikipedia fact, that Elvis Presley, this was one of his favorite Christmas movies.
Oh yeah, I read that as well. I feel like the IMDb trivia of this movie is really good. You should just read it all aloud.
I got a lot of it from the one of the bonus features called 12 Days of Christmas, I think it was. Yeah,
Mhm.
12 Days of Black Christmas. So a lot of that's just somebody cut and paste all the quotes from that feature.
Okay.
But
That person is a hero. It's probably Elijah Brenner.
I don't know if anybody would get that reference, but you mentioned it in other episodes.
The super fans will get it.
Yeah. But the thing I didn't get with Elvis Presley, part of the trivia fact was that it became a tradition that he would watch the movie every year at Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
But the movie came out in 1974 and Elvis died in 1977. So it was only like a 2-year tradition. That's like me watching Jingle All the Way 2 years in a row. It's not really, I wouldn't say it's a tradition. I just happened to watch it 2 years in a row.
You know what you guys are? Nothing but a bunch of sleazy con men in red suits.
Yeah, what is that saying or expression, like a 3-day monk? Like someone who devotes themselves to something only for like a little bit of time, but like pretends to be like super into it. That's Elvis with this movie. Jesus, what a poser. Don't be cruel. I think I will be when I heard about this.
Thank you very much.
Where to begin with this film? I don't want to begin with the end, but the ending is something I wanted to talk about.
The ending's amazing. A lot of misdirection.
It's such an ambiguous movie. It's so strange because it's like it's a slasher movie before slasher movies really existed that feels like it's a revolutionary version of a slasher movie.
Yeah. But the interesting thing is that it's one of the movies where you never actually see the killer.
Yeah. I thought the killer, I'm not sure if this is common or sounds crazy, but I was positive the killer was Olivia Hussey. Wait, why are you laughing? You don't think that's like I thought that I thought like I really thought that was both times I watched it. I was like, oh, is the killer Olivia Hussey? Because she's the one who gets all the calls. I mean, I guess there's a scene where they're all listening to one call.
Well, Margot Kidder's character answers one of the calls or takes the phone from Olivia Hussey.
That was sick. I really don't think you should provoke somebody like that, Barb.
Oh, listen, this guy's minor league in the city. I get 2 of those a day.
Maybe.
One of the things I read, though, the first girl that gets killed, Claire Harrison, she's the one that gets the bag over her head and then put in the rocking chair. They allude to that her boyfriend was the killer.
I don't know.
And I think in the original, I think the studio wanted that ending where at the end he like mentions Agnes again, and then he approaches like Olivia Hussey, where I guess it's where he kills her. But it is ambiguous with the ending, besides the fact that the killer is still at large. But will Olivia Hussey live or die? We don't know.
What happened?
They didn't take it seriously.
Why?
I don't know.
Russ, why don't you give us a little bit of an overview of this film before we really get into it?
Well, it takes place at a sorority house, and they're about to go on winter break, I think. It's right before Christmas or Christmas Eve.
Yeah, it's definitely not fall break.
A fall break! The girls in the sorority get a series of obscene phone calls, which gets more and more ominous with each one.
Mm-hmm.
And it leads to a climax where we think the killer might be Olivia Hussey's boyfriend. And she winds up killing him, but yet the killings potentially continue.
And is her boyfriend the one played by Keir Dullea?
Yeah, Keir Dullea does a great job in this movie because he's so unlikable.
Yeah.
Peter, Jesus, you scared the hell out of me. Why didn't you say something?
Yeah? Well,
I think I mentioned it in an older episode about a teacher I had in film school, Nina Foch, who was like a old-time actress. She was in the 10 Commandments, a lot of old films. And she said one time, she said, we used to say about Keir Dullea, Keir today, gone tomorrow.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, because they thought he was like had no talent and he'd soon be out of the biz.
Is that true though? Because I only know 2 of his works.
Yeah, no, I don't know. She was just very catty.
Yeah. For those that don't know, Keir Dullea, he was in 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, he played the big baby.
Well,
he was typecast after that. He was like, I look like this weird big baby from space.
Do you think there's people out there that haven't seen 2001? I'm sure there's a ton, right?
Oh, millions. Like everyone under 30, probably. It's like the same kind of ratio it's always been.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Now, I don't know if you read, but I think this was one of Margot Kidder's first films.
Mm-hmm.
And she was described on set as being very quiet. And Olivia Hussey has said that she didn't really get along with Margot Kidder.
Uh-oh.
But I read a quote from Margot Kidder that basically said that Olivia Hussey was pretty crazy.
Really?
Olivia Hussey was really into what her psychic was guiding her with. That's why she took the role in the movie. She believed that, according to her psychic, that she would fall in love with Paul McCartney and they would be married.
Did it happen?
No, it did not.
I'm not a big Beatles person, so I didn't know.
But so I think maybe Margot Kidder thought she was a little kooky. But it seemed like it was a fun movie to make. And Keir Dullea was only on set for a week.
Oh, yeah, I read that.
Yeah, with the way it's edited, it seems like he was involved more. He didn't even interact with a lot of the characters.
They really got a big bang for their buck out of Keir Dullea on that one.
And he really only did the movie because his parents lived near where it was shooting.
Yeah, I like that detail.
I do too.
I'm tired of having to line up behind 6 people every time I want to take a bath. I've had it.
Oh, one last thing about getting into the Christmas spirit. I heard that you watched Jingle All the Way.
Oh, I did watch Jingle All the Way, and it was a huge success.
Yeah, it's fun, right?
It is fun. It's
obviously corny.
It's definitely. I had never seen it before. It's not a good movie, but it is entertaining, and it feels so much like a product of like the studio era that we grew up on. That it's almost like soothing on like a structural level, and I don't know. It was never boring to watch. And I just kept finding myself thinking, if there are parallel universes that get created every time some kind of thing goes one way or the other way, and someone from a parallel universe could see into ours where Arnold had like the most unlikely movie star career, they'd be like, why is this guy in this film? Like, it's just so bizarre when he's like in the early scenes of that film, just like doing family stuff. And I was like, this is so weird. Why would they cast this guy?
Howard, do you have any idea what time it is?
I know. You should have seen the traffic. And on top of that, I got a speeding ticket.
As I was watching it again, I was thinking, who's he fooling? Like, is he really an executive of some company?
Yeah, really. And I never could have guessed that he was going to end up as the guy in the end. Like, and have that huge scene. I'm really bad for someone who's like a writer. I'm pretty bad at coming up with how movies are going to end. Like, I was like, I guess I'll just find it at a store.
Yeah, you really have to suspend your disbelief for a lot of that movie, though.
Well, they made like an Iron Man suit just for like a parade costume,
but it's in like a random Minnesota town. It's not even like New York or anything.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, it's the most, like, that suit would be that would be how many millions of dollars for that suit?
At that point, it would have been like trillions, because you can't even make that today.
The last thing I'll say about Jingle All the Way, the worst part of that movie is Jake Lloyd's acting.
I can't believe Jake Lloyd's acting. I can't believe George Lucas saw that and he was like, this is the kid.
Was that his only other work
Yes.
before?
Yes.
Oh my God. He's not even that cute. There's like other kids that were so much cuter.
Yeah, that's wild.
Thanks, Turbo Man. I knew you'd save me.
You can always count on me.
Like I said, the cast was really good. Another John Saxon playing a cop role.
Oh yeah, John Saxon. Recently saw him in The Bees, like a Vinegar Syndrome movie that I got at Fantastic Fest. Just like a bad Killer Bees movie.
Is it recent?
Pretty funny though. Kind of worth watching. No, he's been dead for a couple of years now.
Who's been dead for a couple of years?
John Saxon.
No way. He's still alive, isn't he?
Dead as a doornail.
No. John Saxon? I'm looking this up right now, so keep talking.
Olivia Hussey. It's so weird to see her.
John Saxon's not dead.
Well, that's good news. How old is he?
John Saxon's alive and well. He's how old is he? He looks good for his. What are you doing? He's 83.
I knew he was.
And he looks good for 83.
I knew he was 83.
Yeah. You know how there's certain celebrities that die that could be not really that notable and they just affect you. If John Saxon was really dead, I would be sad by that.
Well, next episode we'll be doing some grieving.
Oh.
Nah, I give him like 8 more episodes. Olivia Hussey.
You know who I thought?
Oh, what were you saying?
Wait, you know who I thought was dead, and I looked it up, and I felt relieved. What's his fucking name now? His last name is Bailey, but he was the cop that everyone hated from Police Academy.
Oh,
I can't think of his name.
Yeah, I can't think of
G.W.
his...
Bailey or something like that. Something like that.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure he was dead, and I looked it up, and I was just like, he's still alive, and that made me happy for a brief moment, and then I went back to being depressed, but it did cheer me up for a few seconds.
Well, he's glad he could do that for you.
Tony! I've already told you once, nobody screws with me.
Well, maybe you'll meet the right girl and all that'll change.
Do you know that the original role of Phil, played by Andrea Martin, was offered to Gilda Radner?
Oh, yeah, I think I did hear that.
And she had commitments to Saturday Night Live, but the character, or Andrea Martin, was also a comedian. She was in the Second City troupe. No, not interested.
No, that is. I'm trying to remember which character she was, to be honest.
She was the one with the afro and the glasses. She was like the last person, I think, to be killed.
Yeah, now I remember.
And she made it that long into the movie. And then they just kind of like had a throwaway death where she just like checked up on Margot Kidder's character, was killed by Billy hanging out in the room.
Fastest tongue in the West.
But I checked out some of her comedy. Not my thing.
Well,
not my sense of humor.
What is it, like Stand Up from 1974? You think it's gonna?
No, but her big thing was doing like a myriad of like impressions of celebrities at the time, like Barbra Streisand.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so like corny because like she would just do the impression, but like when she was doing an impression of Barbra Streisand and hitting a note, she would like cross her eyes, and that was like the big joke there.
That is offensive. I understand why you're outraged.
I know you could say. Let me cross that note off. That was a horrible note to have.
Yeah.
The character of Billy, though. What did you think of the portrayal of the killer?
I thought it was pretty interesting.
Pretty sexy talk, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, those calls are so crazy and they get crazier. I mean, I guess another thing we should say is that this is like based on that urban legend of the calls are coming from inside the house that was featured in When a Stranger Calls.
Yes. The caller is in the house. The calls are coming from the house.
And definitely influenced Scream.
Is this the first case of that where the calls are coming from inside the house?
There is like a slightly earlier movie I read about that uses it as well.
Really?
But I think it's like a radio station it takes place.
I did read that. I had some questions for you about Billy the Killer.
Okay, go on.
Well, I don't know if we could talk about his dialogue so much. It's pretty offensive.
Okay.
That's not my question.
I didn't know this show had just become family friendly.
Well, some of it made me laugh, though.
I mean, his voice just sounds so crazy. I wonder if you were thinking the same thing that I was thinking.
What?
Can you play here like one of the crazier clips? Play it right here.
Not bad.
Suck my juicy cock. I'll come over. I'll come over and you can suck it. Suck it. Okay.
Listen, you pervert, why don't you go over to Lambakai? They could use a little of this. Oh, why don't you go find a wall socket and stick your tongue in it? That'll give you a charge.
I'll stick my tongue up your pretty pussy.
You fucking creep.
Do you ever worry that this is what the podcast sounds like to people?
Yeah, they just can't talk back to us or hang up.
Yeah.
How did he throw his voice to do 3 different characters at once?
I mean,
I know there's people that can throw their voice, but to that degree?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone, as you know, I'm a bit of a vocal impresario myself. And
you want to try that again?
I don't think that, I don't think anyone could physically do that.
It's kind of revolting, though. Like some of those childish sounds he was making.
I mean, the calls are like genuinely disturbing. Like
they really are.
They really are just creepy, and they add like such a nice element to things.
Hello? 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 Oh, hell, not again. Billy? Oh, I'm sorry, you have the wrong number.
What your mother and I must know is, where did you put the baby?
You've got the wrong number.
Where did you put Agnes, Billy?
Look, I'm telling you, you have the wrong number.
What your mother and I must know is, Billy!
They especially get creepy when he repeats one of the lines that Keir Dullea says to Olivia Hussey.
Yeah. And that line was,
Just like having a wart removed.
Oh my God.
One of the other subplots of the movie is that Olivia Hussey's character is pregnant, but she doesn't want to keep the baby, which kind of sends Keir Dullea's character in a downward spiral where he becomes completely unhinged and kind of becomes threatening, where it seems like he's definitely the murderer.
Yeah, he definitely. There could not be a more credible red herring.
Yeah, especially he said he just is in the house at random times as well.
Yeah.
I was upstairs having a little sleep. I hope you don't mind, but it got a little cold out there waiting for you.
You know, if this movie continued, like if that it didn't come to an end the way it did, he would have been killing people sooner or later.
It's true. It's true. They could have done the sequel, and he could have been the killer.
You know what I wanted to ask? You know how the other part of the film, there was a murder in the park, and it was that 13-year-old girl, Janice Quinn?
Mm-hmm.
Now, they said that she was raped and murdered, and that she's 13 years old, which is completely very dark. But is that also the killer's work, or is that just a random coincidence?
I think it had to have been him, right? I mean, it didn't seem like this town was like overrun with killers.
Yeah, it would be too much of a coincidence if there just happens to be a 13-year-old that's killed and then that he's killing sorority girls. I think that was a killing that he did on the way to the house.
Yeah, I think so too.
But the interesting thing is that the calls didn't start when he entered the house, because they talked about, I mean, the first call that we see wasn't the first call that was made. They talked about a few calls prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
So was he calling them before he was in the house, or was he always in the house and just left to go kill the girl in the park and then came back?
Now, he was calling them before he got to the house, and the whole time he was on his way to the house, he's like, God damn, I hope they have a second line. I hope they have a second line in there.
Yeah, his whole plan wouldn't work. The movie wouldn't work if they didn't have that second line.
Speaking of phone numbers, isn't it trippy like in old movies? And this movie is a little more modern than this usually happens, but when they have the old numbers, when they're like,
the Klondike and the
exactly
exchanges.
Yeah.
When did that turn over to area codes? Because I don't remember that at all as a kid.
Yeah, I feel like
it had to be before,
like the late 70s, mid to late 70s.
I think it was later than that though. I think it was actually 80 or 81, and we weren't using phones then. So,
speak for yourself, but I have no memory of it.
Do you think people lost their minds when they were told to go to area codes?
Probably.
Like they can't call the operator and ask for like Klondike 5567 or whatever.
I mean, you remember when Long Island added another area code? That was traumatic for some people.
Speaking of phones, though, because obviously this movie's pre-caller ID, and growing up in the 80s was pre-caller ID.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever get any obscene phone calls?
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Go for it.
Okay, I remember my first experience with prank phone calls was at a sleepover at John Brown's house. And it was in 5th grade. No, it was in 6th grade. And a bunch of kids like all got in a line to like, everyone had like prank somebody. And everyone's like, oh, who are you going to prank? Who are you going to prank? And I was like, oh, I'm going to prank my family. And everyone couldn't believe that I was going to prank my family. But I was like, who else could I prank? I can't prank an actual person. But I still remember our friend Nick. I still remember
Nick was there?
Yeah, he was there. And I remember the exact like lines of his prank. He like called someone up like in like a very little kid voice and was like, hey, will you accept a collect call from Mike? And then they were like, no. And he's like, you won't accept a collect call from your own son? That sleepover was really notable because me and a friend of the podcast, Matt Garrett, ended up going into like I brought a bunch of comics with me, and we ended up ignoring everyone else and just like reading comics. And these were like the jockey kids who were like, you gotta choose us or the comics. And we're like, we choose these comics. And the sad thing is that it was like a period of X-Men where to this day, I still don't understand like what the story was. Like it was just very confusing. So I was getting nothing out of it.
Wait, when you pranked your parents, what did you say?
Did you know that Joe and Phil Necro are the winningest brothers tandem ever in history?
But then the real one that I think about sometimes was that one time I was playing bottom of the ninth with Foot and Nick, I think, and it was like 11:30 at night, and a call came, and it was like a teenage sounding guy, and he's like, "Hey, calling from is Jimmy Darty there?" And I was like, no. And he must have been a little older because my brother's living in like North Carolina, I think, at this point. And they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm calling from a website, like night sexual encounters." And I think it was not even a website at that point. And it was like a dating line. He's like, "Calling from like a dating line." And I was like, "My brother's using a dating line? What a loser." And then hung up. And then the guy immediately called back, and I was like, "Hello?" And he's like, "Yeah, please don't hang up." I hung up again, and then the phone rang again, and Foot picked up and went, "Fuck you," and hung up. The call, like, again, it rang, and I called to like pick something. I called to like, I picked up to say something else, and it was kind of like in Scream or something. The guy was like, "Don't hang up. I'm going to fucking gut you like a fish." And I was like, "What?" And I hung up, and like 20 minutes later, a car pulled up outside of the house.
Wait, I was there for that. I was totally there for that.
Oh, you were there for that?
Yeah. That was scary, man.
That was scary. Yeah, because I remember the plan was at one point, John was going to get my bow and arrow, like a compound bow, like Rambo style bow. And he was going to go out the backyard and hop over a few fences and then come around like behind the car and shoot the arrow into the car, as if like we were ever really going to do that. But we're like, okay, we gotta get the stuff. But yeah, that was terrifying too, because it seemed like they could see us in the room we were in. So we're just like laying on the ground.
Yeah, what was that really about? Like over a girl, right?
Yeah. And I mean, we called the cops, and like I remember seeing the cop car like pulling up, because I think they came the next night. That's when we called the cops. It was like night number 2. And the cop pulled up behind them, and they explained that they liked using like a CB or something, and this is like the only place where they got good reception. It was like obviously a bullshit story.
You goddamn right. I do it again too. The bastard was trespassing.
One thing we haven't said is that Olivia Hussey, most famously from the 1968 Romeo and Juliet.
Yes.
For years, I had never seen her in anything else except for, I guess, the It miniseries from 1990.
When you first saw Romeo and Juliet with Olivia Hussey, how much did you love her?
I like no one else. And also the fact that I had never seen her from anything else. I don't even think I realized that it was her in It for a while. She was just like this, like, you know, you see it in school for the first time. You're just like, oh my God, that's the most beautiful person.
I remember watching Romeo and Juliet. We watched it in 9th grade English class. And at first I had very little interest in watching it, but as soon as she appeared on screen, I was hooked for the duration of that film.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, if I could go back in time. Actually, I didn't even realize it was 68. So I was just like, I need to find her and tell her I love her. I'm just a high school kid, but I'll make my way in this world. I'll prove my love for her.
Yeah, you're like, I've got so much. If she just give me a chance, I got so much to offer her. We could play Genesis.
There's nothing worse than being infatuated with an older woman when you're like in middle school and high school.
I know.
Like you have nothing to offer.
Oh my God.
My love is deep. The more I give to thee, the more I have. For both are infinite.
Rusty, getting back to the film, I want to ask you about one scene in particular.
Yes.
When the house mother is calling for the cat and she keeps saying Claude again and again.
Yeah. Yeah.
That moment must have been huge for people named Claude.
Why is that?
Like if someone named Claude was watching that movie, because like she said Claude so many times, and like they're watching it at home, like with their like wife. The wife's like, Claude, you must be loving this, huh?
Come on, Claude, I gotta go. Oh, God damn it, Claude, you little prick.
Yeah, how did Claude get into the attic anyway? You had to take a ladder up there.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
The thing I was wondering about, Claire Harrison's the first girl to be killed.
Mm-hmm.
And Billy keeps her in the attic on a rocking chair, and he kind of pushes her around and refers to her as Agnes. They never found her body. In the end, she's still up there. So did her father know that she was dead or not? Or did he just assume that she's dead?
Not sure. It's like Black Christmas 2. Someone putting some boxes away has a very unpleasant surprise.
How didn't they see that from the street? You could see her corpse in the window.
Yeah, that's true. Would you ever want to find a body?
That always frightens me. I don't know how I would handle it. I'm worried that if my dogs ever pass away, well, they will pass away, but if I just like could get up one day and they're dead, like that would be horrifying to me.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Imagine like finding like a loved one dead.
Oh yeah. When I said find a body, I mean a loved one. I meant like a body like that had been murdered. Like you're
like
jogging.
in Stand By Me.
Yeah, you're like jogging in the woods and you're like you saw a body.
That's probably not as bad. It's definitely traumatic.
Yeah.
But I'd rather that than somebody I care about.
Yeah. Well, I feel like somebody you care about, it's like I'm not gonna say probably gonna happen, but definitely way more likely.
Yeah, although the funerals that I've gone to, which has been more than I would like to have gone to, but it never bothers me to see the open casket.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's part of life. There's a good quote about death.
Go on.
Everybody should do in their lifetime sometime two things. One is to consider death, to observe skulls and skeletons, and to wonder what it will be like to go to sleep and never wake up. Never. That is a very gloomy thing for contemplation, but it's like manure. Just as manure fertilizes the plants and so on, so the contemplation of death and the acceptance of death is very highly generative of creative life. You get wonderful things out of that.
I remember in 6th grade art class, we had to do calligraphy. And I remember telling one of the Tomaselli twins, because we're so deep in our comics phase, I was like, I'm going to do They Laugh at the Law, but They Don't Laugh at Me, The Punisher. And one of I was absent, and then I came in like the next day, and one of them had taken that from me, and I was like, "Oh no, what am I going to do now?" And they were like, Infinity Gauntlet had just come out, and they were like, "Dude, death should be revered, Thanos, the Titan." And I was like, "Okay," so I did that, and Mr. Catney's, one of our friends' uncles, was the art teacher and also like the football coach. And I'll never forget him coming up and like looking over one of the twins' shoulder, and he's like, "They laugh at the law, but not at me." I like that. That's good. I like that a lot. And then he looked at mine and then didn't say anything and just looked at me and like walked away.
With all the dark content, there was some lighthearted humor thrown in there, scattered about.
Oh yeah, Margot Kidder, definitely.
I really like Margot Kidder's character.
Yeah,
especially with the first call when like he's saying like "lick it" to her, and she's just like, "Not bad." And then like
He's expanded his act.
Could that be one person?
No, Claire, that's the Mormon Tabernacle Choir doing their annual obscene phone call.
So that was funny. And then of course the fellatio exchange, which comes up later when the cop didn't understand what fellatio was.
Yeah, it was weird though, because it seemed like he did get what fellatio was when he's first taking the complaint.
Yeah, I mean they wanted to make that joke work, when he's just like, "She gave me fellatio."
Yeah.
I know. Something dirty, ain't it?
You know what's funny? I was at Target the other day. Jen had to get some gifts for her nieces and nephews.
Mm-hmm.
So we were in the toy section, and I was obviously looking at all the current toys. And it's really trippy because it's a lot like shopping when we were kids. Like a lot of the packaging, first of all, the products are just stuff that we grew up with. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the packaging is the same retro packaging.
Oh, wow.
Like they have a whole series of board games that are devoted to like the retro packaging, like Rock'em Sock'em Robots and Clue and stuff. And it was just like, holy shit, this looks like the 80s. Wow. But then they have a new version. I'm sure you've seen it, of Teddy Ruxpin.
I know. I have seen that.
And he looks like an alien now. So like, I don't know why they just did the same one.
I think...
But there's so many products that are just what we grew up with. It's insane.
Well, you can squint and then feel happy again.
I just want kids now. I want to buy all that stuff
that is...
and just play with it myself. Even seeing shit like a sit and spin. Remember those?
Oh yeah.
Like, wow, I don't even think I can make one rotation without losing my equilibrium. Being old, huh?
Yep.
Speaking of old, did you know that Keir Dullea was 38 in this film? Pretty old for a college kid, huh?
I read that and it gave me hope. I was like, maybe I can play a college kid someday.
You know that Claire Harrison's father, when he gets hit with a snowball and the guy comes over, the frat guy, he's like, sorry about that, man. Like, I should have been watching those kids more carefully. That guy had some lush hair, huh?
Yeah, I need that.
Didn't Claire Harrison's look like he could have been one of the creeps from What Have You Done to Solange?
Oh, completely.
He could have been a creepy professor.
Yeah, he had that look. He even, like, just something about, he seemed like his character was like in an even grainier film stock than everyone else.
I didn't send my daughter here to be drinking and picking up boys.
When Billy wrecks the attic, didn't it remind you of Belial wrecking the hotel room in Basket Case? He's like, ah!
There was like 3 voices that made up Billy's character. One of them was the one that actually played him, which was the actor Nick Mancuso. But to get that voice, to do Billy's voice, he had to stand on his head.
Oh, yeah, I read that.
Which would compress his thorax. Now, he reprised that voice for the Blu-ray, for the 40th anniversary Blu-ray. Do you think they made him stand on his head again to do that?
I did not know that what do you mean when he reprised the voice?
I don't know. As one of the features on the 40th anniversary Blu-ray, he did the voice, I guess, for one of the featurettes.
Oh, if you can put that on a loop, maybe I'll play that during my holiday party at full volume. There's like 3 hours of like.
Is this your holiday party with just you and your cakes and pies or cupcakes?
No, well, actually, I'm going to have some people over at different times leading up to Christmas, but my Christmas itself will be just me.
Little baby bunting, daddy's gone a-hunting, gone to fetch a rabbit skin to wrap his baby eggs.
What do you think the origins are for Billy? And I mean, on some of his calls he makes, he refers to him saying like, please stop, oh God. And I know what you did, Billy, filthy Billy. And then he refers to Agnes. So what do you think the context of those ramblings are?
Well, being completely ignorant of any backstory they may have given it in the remake or I think there's a sequel, right? Is there a sequel?
There's a remake that came out not that long ago where Andrea Martin becomes the house mother.
Oh, but just taking it from this movie based on nothing else, it kind of feels like maybe Billy and Agnes were twins. And something weird happened, maybe even on the level of like a Michael Myers style thing where he killed Agnes and then became permanently psychotic as a result.
The police officer that's parked outside to watch the house and who later they find has his throat slashed. Did Billy leave the house to slash his throat?
I guess he must have.
And go back in? Like, did he know? Was he that aware that he knew? I guess he heard like the police talking. Was that inside the house where the police said they were going to station a guy outside?
I think so, yeah. Because don't they say like, oh, look out the window, like see that guy out there, like he's watching the house.
Yeah. So wouldn't he have also known that the phone was tapped?
He probably was like, that's sick. They're going to be so freaked out when they know I'm called from inside the house. I mean, what would be the point of call from inside the house if not to reveal it eventually?
It's funny that it's another classic case of wiretapping. Like that was used all the time in the 80s.
Oh, yeah. You mean like the keep them on the line thing, right?
Did you think your phones were ever wiretapped?
They were.
Anyone who wanted to hear what you were saying? They were.
My phones were wiretapped as a child. I'm not kidding.
Really? Why?
Because I told the story in a previous episode about my uncle who was in the mob. And,
okay.
My other uncle who he was warned by like a law enforcement relative, and he fled, and then it led to like our phones being tapped.
They're like, we're trying to get some information, and all we're getting is a kid talking about his fantasies of having his penis slapped by some witch from some show on TV.
Or I remember when I was in first grade. I think this was right around the time too when the phone was tapped. But in first grade, I like had this idea for a movie called Escape Twins, and it was going to star me and like it was kind of always like a revolving cast of like the twin was always like the kid like I thought was like cool and that I wanted to be / have sex with. And so one day I called all the kids from like my class and we're like, you're going to play Quasar. You're going to play Hawk. You're going to play the Spider. And but then like the next day they all confronted me because I'd given like a bunch of them all the same part. Like I fucked up my cast. And they all were angry. They were like, I thought I was playing Crusher. And who knows? The FBI could have been listening to that whole call being like, Jesus. Is there even a script?
Jess, we didn't get him. If there wasn't enough time, you'll have to keep him on the line longer.
Anything else you want to say?
I mean, having never seen this before, I really liked it. I think I still need to see it a few more times to really process it and kind of like see where it falls in my horror rankings. But definitely a good film.
It's up there.
That's up there, yeah.
I think it holds up really well, which makes it a good film.
Oh, it holds up like in the way that when you watch an older movie and it seems like this is more modern than modern movies.
Yeah.
Like it's like one of those movies that's really ahead of its time.
How badly do you think they fucked up the remake?
I didn't see the remake.
You did?
I did not see it.
I'm saying, how badly do you think they fucked it up? Do you think they gave like the killer a backstory?
I'm sure they did. I'm absolutely positive they did.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like so many of those movies are so anonymous. Like I'll think to myself like, oh, maybe it'll be interesting to watch this and maybe it'll be funny how bad it is. Maybe it'll be, but I'm just watching it. I feel like a dog watching TV. I'm just like, nothing is registering. I can't even process.
I always feel with horror films, whenever they give the murderer a backstory, it always loses appeal for me. Like it's so much better when they're ambiguous, what their intentions are or why they're doing it.
Oh yeah. I'll never forget. I was on a flight years ago. And I was seated next to a guy who just had like the air of kind of like an executive. And I was glancing over what he was reading on his computer and I realized that he was reading a script and I was like, oh shit. I just kept reading. And then I saw like dialogue from Michael Myers. It was like Michael Myers and there's like dialogue. And I was like, oh, this must be a parody of Halloween. But it turned out to be Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Oh, that's disgusting.
You know the scene, which I did like, they were having like dinner and Mr. Harrison doesn't have much of an appetite because he's worried about his daughter. But Barb, who's played by Margot Kidder, is sitting there and she's looking through a Playboy magazine, but she also goes on about the sea turtles that she once observed them they could have sex for 3 days and she observed them.
Yeah, I remember this.
That was such a random scene. And I didn't really know what the point was because it wasn't so much about the characters. Was it that she was a little liquored up? What did you make of that?
I think so, yeah. Because then doesn't she make a joke like right after that?
Well, she makes a couple of jokes during that scene.
There's a certain species of turtle that can screw for 3 days without stopping. Can you believe that? 3 days? I'm lucky if I get 3 minutes. Do you know how I know this? Because I went down to the zoo and I watched them.
Is that to get her to the next point in her story?
I don't remember it well enough to really comment.
You know how Billy's hiding out in the attic?
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, you know how I had like an abundance of things that freaked me out? I had a fear growing up that there was somebody living in my attic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Did you ever see my attic growing up?
No.
My parents' house was like built in the 1920s. So it was an older house and the attic itself was half unfinished and half finished. And when you went up into the attic, it was like one room, which could have been like a living room kind of thing. And then there was like a second room that could have been a bedroom. And then off to the side, there was a closet that was like a walk-in closet. which my parents had a lot of dated clothing. So the clothing was like from the 60s and 70s, which was already gave a creepy vibe. But then there was like a back room behind the clothing, this like little crawl space. And I always thought there could be somebody living there, like a killer that waited for my family and me and my brother to fall asleep, and they would come down and kill us. And it used to give me like nightmares. So what I would do every night I would go up into the attic, very scared and very slowly with like a flashlight, and because there was no light in that area, and with like some kind of makeshift weapon. And obviously the weapon wouldn't do anything. It was probably like a He-Man sword.
Imagine,
Like
yeah, if there really was someone living up there and they saw like a little kid with like a He-Man sword, they're just like, get the fuck out of here.
But at least I could alarm my parents. I was the brave one, but I was very freaked out for a while. And I would think like anytime my family would like leave the house, that was their time to break in and go into hiding in that attic space. And it scared the shit out of me. Like growing up, did you ever have anything? Your house has kind of had some scary areas to it, some dark corners.
Oh yeah, I'll never forget the basement. There was like a kind of like one of those classic basement windows, but there was a curtain that they put up covering it. But when the light outside shined like a certain way, it made it, and the lights were off, it made it look like there was a face behind the curtain. I believe that first Monster Squad meeting where you cried about the bow and arrow in third grade was mostly about fighting that face.
Did we take it down?
We did, because like someone threw like one of the weapons at it and it hit it and like kind of like broke the magic of like where the light was hitting it, so it no longer looked like a face.
I like that you did. I like that it took a Monster Squad meeting to do that.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I have to have 10 kids over to like help me deal with this face. But I was just thinking about, I'm sure you've been in my old parents' house attic. Remember that attic?
That was a cool attic because you had so many interesting toys up there, like from your brother's generation.
God. If I still had all of that stuff, I could make that into like the greatest like vintage toy collection, because there's just so much good stuff between that and then like the cedar closet downstairs, which had all of like my G.I. Joes and Transformers.
Yeah,
I wish I had all that stuff back.
We have to go back.
See, the difference between my attic and yours was the one that you have to like, that was in the ceiling where you had to pull the ladder down.
Yeah.
My parents' house, you could open a door and there were stairs going up to it.
Oh, crazy.
And plus the attic was like, had like 7-foot high ceiling. So it wasn't like where you had to crouch or anything.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, could have been another living area.
Wow.
But yours, like, I think you could only like half stand up in your attic, right?
Yeah. And you could only, there was only kind of like I remember the first time I went up there with my dad, and like the pink insulation, I was like, oh, can I lay on this? And he's like, Edward, you'll fall down through the ceiling. So ever since he said that, it became like an Indiana Jones style thing where it's just like, there's like the one path you could walk on and everything else was like lava.
Not to mention that fiberglass is horrible for you too.
Oh, I'm sure it would have torn me up.
What's it called though? The other scary thing that your family didn't think was scary, that you guys never locked the door.
Yeah.
So there could have been people living in your house.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I remember I would go to your house to stop by at like 2 a.m. and just walk in the back door. It wasn't like everybody would be sleeping and you'd just be sitting in the den.
The weirdest thing is that when we moved in, the people who had owned the house before us had all these kind of gadgets.
Like gremlins, like their father and gremlins.
Not like gremlins, but like there was like a wind meter, which I've never seen since, like an electric wind meter to like measure the wind. There were solar panels on the roof, which definitely like the first family to have those.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like a really elaborate alarm system. And I remember when we first moved in, my dad would set the alarm, but it started like going off, and it had like a loudspeaker outside the house. So the alarm was like, bang! It was like super loud through the whole neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And he evolved from that alarm system, just leaving all the doors open.
He was very trusting.
So quickly.
Your dad did love having a good chat with a stranger, so maybe he was hoping somebody would break in and he could talk them out of their crimes.
I was at when I was at Sabrina's show, I overheard someone talking, and they were talking about Adam and His Package, and he's like, he's my all-time favorite musician, so of course I went to that festival, blah blah blah. And he's like a younger guy, and I wanted to be like, he played in my basement, and just remembering all those like basement shows where my dad would like talk to like the touring bands. Yeah. I remember the straight edge band Trial from like Seattle, and he was just like, where did you stop along the way? Where have you been?
That was easy to talk to though. They all loved him.
Oh yeah.
Remember your dad would like wear random band shirts too. They were
Oh
like,
yeah, it was like after bonding with the bands, I never saw the shirt be exchanged, and the next day he's wearing like Trial Seattle Straight Edge.
But the other thing, there's also a series of break-ins right around the block from you,
Oh yeah,
and yet you guys still didn't lock the door.
no, we were like, come on in, which is fucked up because I lived deathly afraid of a burglar. Like that was one of my greatest fears: a fire or a burglar. I was always afraid I was gonna fall asleep and like wake up to like being dead. I remember one night I was so convinced there was a burglar because my house also made like weird sounds.
Oh yeah, that house was older, right? Built probably the 50s.
Yeah, definitely in like the 50s. But it just had a few sounds it would always make, and also just plenty of just like random like thuds you'd hear.
Mm-hmm.
And one night I was convinced, and I stayed up all night and at school the next morning, just convinced there's a burglar, but not moving. Another night I remember my end table. I feel like I might have already told this non-story before, but I heard a noise in there, and it was like undeniable. Like I'd tap the table, and then I'd hear like movement inside the table. It was like a closed cabinet, and I spent so long just fucking terrified. I was positive it was a squirrel. And
That's awesome.
I finally devised like a plan to like catch it, and like kind of like arranged like all shit in front of like the doors, and then I was like standing on the table so I'd open it and the thing would run out. And I opened it after all this preparation and being up so late, and it was a radio controlled car that when I would hit it, it would start moving. And yeah, anyway, there you have it.
I picture you with no shirt on and like a bandana wrapped around your head.
I was like really entering like a feral mode.
You know what this scared me? I don't know if you'd ever done this. When I try to describe it to people, they don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So I'm probably gonna do a horrible job now. But if you like close your eyes, you can probably do it with your eyes open. But if you like relax your eyes, you could see like a prism of colors that move around. Like you see like green, red. I'm doing it right now. I see green, red, blues like moving around.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the first time I discovered that I was in bed and I had my eyes closed and I saw it and it freaked me out. I thought it was a demon trying to possess me. And I thought like, cause my house was older and there was like rumors that like one of the houses down the street, somebody hanged himself in the house, but that was actually true. But I thought that the owners of our house killed themselves. And so I thought it was their spirits trying to possess me.
Wow.
But nothing happened. So that would keep me up. That kept me up for like.
I remember when I went. When I saw The Omen on video, and Damien like doesn't want to go to church, and I was like, I don't want to go to church either, and I was like, I'm the son of Satan.
I will rip your soul out, Daddy.
You know what also was scary about your house though? The basement.
Oh yeah.
It was definitely furnished and designed like very early 70s, where like you get this picture like the Manson cult doing some murders in there.
It's definitely like a similar basement to like what they had in like Amityville Horror or something.
Yeah, definitely. And then your dad had his office down there.
Oh yeah.
It's just like a little creepy in that back room. The laundry room that was like unfinished with a lot of cement and like exposed pipes.
And a toilet that never worked.
Yeah, and it was a toilet that if anybody opened that door, you were shitting like out in the middle of the room.
Yeah. My father's office, he never used that office. It was like kind of just a clutter room.
Yeah.
And I just remember like whenever my parents would go out, I would clean that office basically by shoving the stuff in closets and then like present them with the bill.
I thought you did it just to try to earn something. Like when you ask for something, you get it. You actually give them a bill.
No, that was my huge move. When my parents would go out, I always clean and then give them a bill.
It's funny. Do you remember? Did you have chores to do that you got an allowance for?
Yes, but it wasn't really direct relation.
Yeah, I would get like $10 to do the garbage twice a week, and that was like the easiest fucking thing because all I had to do was take the cans to the curb. My dad actually took the trash out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine getting paid to do that now. Like that would be the best job. As a kid, I was just complaining about it.
Oh, I know. It's amazing the stuff that you complain about as a kid.
You complained about anything that took you out of like what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like nowadays, like if a show, well, I don't watch TV anymore like that with commercials. But then if there was a commercial break, like that was a time for getting a snack. If somebody asked you to do something during the break, it was just like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Gotta continue watching the show.
Yeah, fuck you. I'm watching a Kane Alley rerun.
Well, we wondered if you'd seen anything peculiar tonight.
Well, not until you got here.
All right, well, that's it for Black Christmas. I feel like we probably didn't do as good of a job on this one as we could have, but we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that was Black Christmas. So would you recommend it?
Hugely. I just recommended it to Maddie right before I got on the air.
Really?
And she's not like a horror dork or anything. Like I just feel like it's like a good, stylish movie with like a unique feel.
If Elvis loved it, so should you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I didn't. That's one thing I didn't really say. Is I just feel like the movie, like, it just feels like it's on a different filmmaking level than a lot of early 70s horror movies.
Yeah. I mean, just a lot of the shots. It's like a lot of shots are so ominous. It has such a great look to it.
Yeah, it's Bob Clark was a really talented filmmaker. I just wish he was a better driver.
Wow. I say it's the movie's a poignant reminder to hug a loved one around the holiday season. You never know.
That's
Christmas
true.
could take a dark turn.
That is true.
Hello?
What's this? Well, that's the number at the sorority house.
Felicia?
Yeah, it's a new exchange. FE.
New exchange?
Yeah, Felicia. One of the girls that was in this afternoon gave it to me.
She gave it to you.
Yeah.
Nash, I don't think you could pick your nose without written instructions.